What's up, y'all? Today we got Miss Linda Hobar. She's a homeschooling mom. She's also the author of The Mystery of History. She focuses on bringing history to life for homeschooling families. She touches on her homeschooling journey, as well as what she's found that she incorporated into her curriculum to really get the history to have a lasting effect and the knowledge to be really retained with their students. I'll see you guys inside. All right, Miss Linda, thank you so much for joining us today. For people who don't know who you are and don't know what you do, can you give us a little bit of background on yourself and as well as the mystery of history?
Sure. Thanks for having me. So my name is Linda LaCour Hobar. I am the author of The Mystery of History, and I started a long time ago. David, I started homeschooling back in the 1980s. Before there was internet, I don't know how we did it, but it was trips to the library with a dime to make copies. It was just so long ago. That means I'm a veteran in the movement, so I've watched it change and grow. I'm the mother of three. I homeschooled them all. They are now adults with their own children, and some of them are homeschooling, as a matter of fact. So I've
Love
been
it.
in this for a long time. And in teaching my own kids at home, I would come to the subject of world history and I would often pause because I felt like I hadn't found exactly what I wanted just yet. And I knew what I wanted. And so when I'd go to some homeschool support group meetings and we would talk curriculum, I found myself describing what I wanted. And what I realized in retrospect is that I was describing the mystery of history. I just didn't know I was supposed to write it yet. But I knew I wanted real stories. I wanted them to be engaging and not boring. I think we've all dealt with boring history growing up. Textbooks have a way of just killing history. And I also knew, because I was a homeschool mom, that I wanted a lot of hands-on stuff to make it enriching and engaging. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of projects in my book where we set things on fire because I had a boy and we had to have fun. And so we would burn the edges of maps. That was the extent of our fire. But nonetheless, it was a good day if we could, torch something.
That's crazy
So,
because, real quick, that's crazy. My mom, for one of the assignments, we had to make, it was for history. We had to make like an old map that we found, and she had us burn like all the edges to give it that that vibe. So yeah, it's awesome.
and you remember it to this day, don't you?
I do. I
Yes,
do.
because you were using your senses. So the other thing about the mystery of history, real quick, so it is 4 volumes of world history. I started at creation. Each volume is dedicated to the most common of the 4 eras. So yeah, pop quiz. What are those 4 eras? I'll tell you, it's ancient, medieval, Renaissance, Reformation, and modern. And so I followed that traditional route with, each volume. And it is for all ages because that fits the homeschool family. So I didn't divvy it out. Like, it's not as if second grade is our medieval and eighth grade is our modern. No, it's not like that. Every volume is for every age because more than likely we're clustering for this particular subject. And so we read one story all for everyone that's written on the same level. But then after each lesson, there are activities for younger, older, and middle students, or there's
Love that.
mapping exercises for different age levels. So we divvy them out where appropriate, but each story is to be enjoyed as a family. So that's kind of the mystery of history in a very quick nutshell. And I'll probably talk more about it as we go throughout.
Yes, ma'am. I love that. And what a great idea, though, too, to involve everybody in it and then to section it off when it gets into the assignments and stuff. That's a great idea. So what advice do you have for parents who feel overwhelmed with balancing the history education with the rest of all of their homeschooling responsibilities?
Yes, my best advice is to streamline, particularly this subject, because as I was just describing, this is the kind of subject you can cluster. Now, let me back up for a minute and describe how most academic subjects fall into one of 2 categories. So there's a whole host of subjects that we would call stair step. And stair step subjects require mastery to advance. For example, you can't multiply if you can't add. So you have to learn how to add first, right? Or let's see, in certain language arts categories, you can't write a paragraph if you can't form a sentence. So even language arts could be kind of stair step. They require mastery. But there's a whole host of other subjects that I would call living subjects that do not require mastery to advance. They just require your attention. And so living subjects might include Bible, might include earth science, but it definitely would include world history or American history. Any history, I think, is a living subject because you could be 4 years old or 104 years old and you can enjoy the story of the Trojan horse. Now, certainly cause and effect makes it nice to teach in order. And if you want to master ancients before medieval, it's like that's no harm done, but you don't have to master it. You can enjoy any story of any time period. So my best advice to parents to streamline is take all their subjects, like say take stacks of books and go, oh wow, now that you mention it, these are stair step, these are living, and realize that the living subjects are the ones you're going to want to put together as much as possible. I also like to nickname these the sofa subjects because literally you might be able to sit on the sofa with those, whereas certain math assignments or language arts or some other subjects are going to be very stair step. And that's where you have to teach your kids to take your instruction and then maybe they run with it and they have to work on that. So it just helps your day, if nothing else.
No, without a doubt. And that's, we had another interview where someone talked about the benefits of sitting on the couch and going through the stories like that. You make it a whole entire family thing. That's a great response right there.
Well,
So
it's so much easier on the teaching parent too.
it
Just
really
real quick,
is.
like you don't want your third grader on state history, your middle junior high kid on medieval times, and your high schooler on modern. I mean, that's just a lot of work on the parent. So
Yes,
it's nice
ma'am.
when everyone can be in the same time period.
Yes, ma'am. And everyone's learning together. And like I said, for the homeschooling parent, we have so much to worry about already. It's all organized already right there for you. You're just all doing it all at once. So, what can parents use history, or how can parents use history to build that strong character and faith inside of their child?
Oh, I love this question because one of my favorite parts of history is that it is just begging for us to use it to work on their character and their heart. It's this low hanging fruit there because every era really does reflect the nature of mankind. And it is biblical that man is flawed. That's what the Bible teaches is that we are sinners in need of salvation. If we choose to miss that, which a lot of people do, especially modernists, we prefer to lessen what sin is. We don't really like to talk about that anymore. We like to just think, well, everybody's good. If you're just good, if you're just nice, they'll be nice back. Even gentle parenting falls into this trap where just be gentle with your kids and they'll be gentle in return. Well, it sounds lofty and ideal, but it's just not the reality because the Bible teaches clearly that we are born in this nature of sin. It comes from the Garden of Eden. It comes from the fall of mankind with Adam and Eve. And I believe that it's a biblical truth. And so God knew that, but he provided a plan. And the plan is that we could be saved through faith in Jesus Christ. So let's get back to history and how that ties in. Well, since so many history stories will reveal the wicked side of mankind, the evil, the hard stuff. I mean, the history is kind of like the evening news. It's just about everything bad is what seems to make the history books more often than not. But what a perfect way to show kids what it is that we want not to do. We don't want to be selfish. We don't want to be tyrants. We want the grace God offers to help us, with those places. So anyway, one of the other things, let's just talk about another biblical truth that I think we so often miss, or is so often missed in modern times, is the biblical truth is that every one of us is made in God's image. That is just straight out of Genesis. And therefore, we have value. And because we have value, having been made in God's image, that changes or ought to change history. History should not have had some of the things it's had. Like what did Hitler miss? 101, that people have value for being made in the image of God. He missed that simple concept and thought it okay to commit genocide. So yes, history can teach so much about character.
What a lovely way to put that too, because we had an interview with, I'm blanking on his name now, but it's the owner of Unbound, and Miss Beth asked a beautiful question about connecting, and he referred exactly what you're saying into
Mm.
understanding that we're all made in the image of God. So whether or not you like the person, just find a way to love that person is who is made in the image of God, whether they know it, whether they believe it, or whether they're showcasing it. But to understand that right there, to allow yourself to be able to connect with people. And like you said, Hitler didn't. He completely went the other way. But right there, just understanding that much alone can just allow us to treat people a little bit better and make the right decisions in the way we act as human beings rather than falling down the wrong path. So, what are some common mistakes homeschooling families make when they're teaching history, and how do you think that they can go about avoiding them?
Oh, I like this question too. So I have come to this conclusion that the problem most of us had with the history books that we grew up on and that are still common out there is that so many history books, particularly world, they tend to put the entire history of the world in one book. Let's say it's for third grade, and then they put the entire history of the world in a book for seventh graders. And then there's an entire history of the world in a book for 11th or 12th grade, right? So we get it more than once. This would be your traditional textbook company. However, in putting the entire history of the world in one book, you have made it so boring because there's not room for the stories of the people that actually make history interesting. Those books wind up being very date and event oriented, which is a snooze fest. You know, I'm going to fall asleep. I don't care about the names of the treaties and the year of it, but tell me the story. So I have to give you one of my favorite examples. So run this test just for yourself every now and then. It's not uncommon for me to look for history books anywhere and everywhere I go, right? Say I'm at an estate sale or garage sale and I see an old textbook and I'll pick it up. And if you flip to the back and look up Cleopatra, it's
Mm.
been my observation that every time I ever look up Cleopatra, it'll say in the index to flip to whatever page. And when I open it, it will say that she was the last of the Ptolemies, a queen of Egypt, blah, 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 and maybe three or four other sentences, maybe a paragraph. Because again, this is a book that gives the entire history of the world. So you get a paragraph, excuse me, on Cleopatra. First of all, most of us can't even pronounce the word Ptolemy, and we don't even know what that means. But that's what they'll always remind you is that she was the last of the Ptolemies. I say it's hard to pronounce because it starts with a P, but it's pronounced with a T. Okay, so let's just start there. Yeah, she is the last of the Ptolemies, but the interesting thing is she was fighting for the throne. She wrapped herself in a carpet or a bed sack to get smuggled into a meeting to meet Julius Caesar, who happened to be a powerful Roman. And I can't even imagine when she popped out of that, what he thought of her, but clearly he fell in love with her and they have a relationship and she becomes the queen of Egypt because of him. But you know, there's a juicy story that he's assassinated on the windy Ides of March. So what happens to their relationship? It collapses, but it doesn't take her long to attach herself to another powerful Roman who was Mark Antony. You've probably heard of him. They actually marry and he helps her continue to hold the throne of Egypt. But eventually the two will commit suicide because they're overtaken by a man named Augustus Caesar, and lo and behold, Augustus Caesar is the one who declared a decree be made that everyone be taxed and registered in their hometown, which is why Mary and Joseph went to Bethlehem. It is the most mind-blowing connection. So all to say, don't give me a boring paragraph about Cleopatra in a world history textbook when her story, her life is full of drama, romance, power, and then on top of that, it connects to the very storyline of Christ himself. It's there's just too much there for us to shove it into one whole textbook. So that's why the Mystery of History is 4 volumes. It allows you to take one era and spread that out and then tell stories. I think
I
that's
love that.
wonderful.
I love that.
Anyway, you didn't mean to
That
get a history lesson today, but you just got one.
no, but that was the I learned in the paragraph form, but if they would have taught me and if I would have gone through that, I resonate very well with stories myself. Like
Mhm.
that is if you're telling me a story, I'm fully engaged. And I just remember it a lot easier. I feel like if that would have been included within it, I would have definitely been able to draw those connections and really use it through the rest of my life. And also the way you tied it into the Bible and all the history that's with that, that is it makes total sense, but it's left out, like you said, in just a paragraph This is who she is. Okay, let's move on
Yeah.
to the next one.
Yeah.
Okay, so for families that are just starting out, or maybe they're thinking about switching a curriculum, what do you think they should look for inside of a great history program?
I feel that any curriculum of really any subject ought to be twofold. So picture a two-sided coin. One side of the coin for any good curriculum is that it needs to be solid. Like the actual content in it is accurate, it's enriching, it stood the test of time. It's done well. Do you know what I'm saying? So we've got to have content, and that's all great. And I've seen some of that. But if it doesn't have the other side of the coin, which is that it's easy to use, laid out for you, kind of ready to go. Open the page and do the next thing because mama is swamped as it is. Like I don't like a program. Like you could have great content, but if you've got to really put all the pieces together at home, it's going to be hard to get to that content. And then some programs are beautifully laid out, but yet they're shallow and not enriching and they lack the depth or perhaps the accuracy. So I think any great program needs to be vetted on both sides. And that just takes time and years and a market to kind of vet that. So in other words, don't always run to the next shiny thing. I think there are a lot of shiny things out there. And when I was homeschooling my own kids, just to back up, we had, let's see, I would say the content was pretty rich of a lot of things we were using, but some of the things we were using were created by like a private Christian school. And so it was made for a classroom. That's why it wasn't user friendly for the family. It wasn't family oriented. And then on the other hand, there were some new products that were coming out by people like me who had been homeschooling. And so people had this heart and they're like, yes, I'm going to make this or I'm going to make that. And some were made, but, but the, but the professionalism wasn't there. Not at first. It took a bit for that to happen. And so some of these black and white paperbacks came out. Both of you were subject to some of those things. We were kind of homespun for a season back in the 80s and 90s. And so again, the content was there, but the professionalism was lacking. What's so nice for families now, I mean, here we are in 2025. Who knew that home education would be where it is? So now we've had the expertise of folks who have like developed products for home. So the model's right. And it's been out long enough that it's been vetted. It's been curated, so to speak. It's not as sloppy. It's more professional. And that's just good for everybody. It's a real win-win.
How do you suggest that we bring history alive for kids who kind of think it's boring? Luckily for me, I always was very interested in history. That was one of my favorite subjects
Me
after math.
too.
But for my brother and my sister, they were the kids that were falling asleep when we were trying to learn about it. So how do you suggest we kind of bring it alive, make it more enriching and more engaging for those kind of kids?
Sure. I think first I've already answered that question by talking about making it about the people.
Yes,
But
ma'am.
let's go back to let's flesh that out another way. Let's say you're studying the American Revolution. Well, that's a lot. There are a lot of events. There's a lot of moving pieces to the American Revolution. And as exciting as that might be, some children will get lost in the detail and they'll find it boring, even though it's like really a tremendous thing on the timeline. So for that child, you zero into the story of Paul Revere and how he specifically did what he did in his midnight ride. And you read the poem and go see it if you can, which I have walked the trail where he rode. So you need both. You need the event, like perhaps in a nice organized format. But if you're missing those stories of Paul Revere or even a fictional character like Johnny Tremaine, he was not real, but he brings the story alive if you want to read that on the side. So I think it's keeping the people woven in there. But in addition to that, it really goes back to with the little ones using their senses. So, we've got five senses. I think that's right.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
whatever they can taste, touch, feel, hear, that is that's where the little guys build a memory because their memory's attached to their senses. I mean, think about, you walk into your grandmother's house and there's this certain smell about it. It lasts you a lifetime. My grandmother smelled like an Avon product. I mean, you may not even know what that is, but it's this
I
old
do.
product. Yeah. And so kids attach to their memories to their senses. And so by keeping them engaged, even if it's the littlest of things, there's this one silly thing I have kids do where um, when they're building a timeline, there's this one snail that the Phoenicians were famous for. Okay. This snail, they crushed the snail and turned it into a purple dye. And the purple dye is what made them actually wealthy and prosperous traders because this dye was rare. It came from the murex snail. Well, when I have them putting the Phoenicians on a timeline, I have them dip the little figure, sprinkle it with like garlic so that it kind of stinks. And
Okay.
it's just the idea that they're going to remember the smell and go, oh, yeah, those Phoenicians, they're the ones that dried these snails out on the coast and it stunk to high heaven, but it made them prosperous because they made this special purple red dye, which even biblically, we know stories of like the kings who wore purple, right? That was a royal thing. Well, some of that probably came from the murex snail, came from the Phoenicians who lived on the coast. And anyway, the Bible, even in some of the prophetic books, talks about the coast being aromatic, and they don't mean in a good way. So anyway, that's certainly just a little thing you can do is bring it alive. Another thing is consider learning styles. Not all students are going to sit and look at a book and retain so well. Some are going to listen better than look. And so for the listener, like we have audiobooks, we do them with and without music. That always helps. I love the music that we have in our audiobooks because I think it sets a certain mood and tone. There's kind of a theme. Like if you think about it, every movie, show, commercial we watch has music that just lends itself to, a mood. So anyway, we have that. As a matter of fact, we not long ago I recorded King Arthur, the book of King Arthur, and my husband got really carried away. He's my audiovisual master guru, and he started adding sound effects like the clanging of swords and horse hooves and all kinds of things. And so I think those sound effects can go a long way with just making history not so boring.
I love that. If you don't mind, can I ask you just a couple questions about you being a homeschool mom?
Yeah.
Okay, so you said you started in the 80s. Now,
Mhm.
obviously, we've seen a humongous transition. As a homeschooling mom back then, you've had to be really just going against the grain. Everyone had to be kind of telling you maybe that what you were doing was wrong. How did you find the faith in yourself and your ability to make sure that your kids were educated when at that time it was so just not really encouraged and it looked so down upon?
Boy, that is a good question. Let me think. In all honesty, I think some of it does go back to personal faith and feeling a calling to do it. I think when you feel the Lord leading you away, that gives you confidence alone. Like, no matter what, this is what I feel the Lord led me to do. But let me be honest, I would be lying if I said there weren't a few times my feelings were hurt. Even in the last few years, and this, I was homeschooling what, over 20 years ago? Even in the last few years, there's still a stranger or family member that just pops that one comment in a way to insult. And I have to remember this. When people say something negative about home education, they're speaking from a few places. Number one, 30, 20 years ago, there weren't so many resources. And I want to say in my heart, they're coming from a place of good. They're concerned for me that they think I might not be able to be resourceful enough. Also, we've all known a few odd characters who have been, quote, homeschooled. And for whatever reason, they don't look quite like we would want them to look. Well, this is true all over the world in all socioeconomic circles. It's not unique to homeschooling, but it only takes knowing one real oddball to kind of like, the bad apple sort of like shows up. So I think we have to be careful about the image we project. And then also, when people do insult us, I think we need to go back to thinking, okay, they mean well. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt.
Okay.
But I can back up what I've done two ways. personal experience. My kids have turned out fabulous. They're not perfect people, but we did our job well because I was so dedicated to it. And, just out of loving my kids and feeling like it was a good choice for us. And then also, when you look at the statistics of how home educated students have been doing in the last 20 years, it's phenomenal. We lead the charts in all the SAT, ACT, we lead in GPAs. It's like, it is astounding, the statistics, because we're looking at private tutoring, which is nothing new. Homeschooling is not new. It's actually been going on since the beginning of time. It's just that back in the early American history, we started to formalize education, and then a school came here and a school came there. And that served a place in a time when you might have had more illiterate folks out on the pioneer who needed a school. But as time has progressed, it's kind of like we've come full circle and realized with all the resources available, parents can do a great job at home. They just,
Yes, ma'am.
and there's hardly any excuse. In fact, the stats even show that even home educating parents, or parents who are teaching at home, who may or may not have even finished high school or a college education, even they still are getting good results because they're learning with their students, and they're resourced. There's things available. We have co-ops galore. So anyway, yeah, I've had to have thick skin a time or two. And back in the day, I knew I was not following mainstream, but that was true in the areas of health. We were not vaccinating way back, so we were early pioneers there. We were on this nutrition bend that was unusual for the time. I mean, literally, I was a granola mom, one of the first. And then home education to kind of like, and just being a believer. I mean, we were so countercultural. It's funny now to see so many more people on this bandwagon. But we were there and it was okay. We found each other. We found support.
You guys are pioneer. There's two things I want to highlight you said there. One, when it comes to the oddball. So my mom taught in public schools. She taught high school math for 10 years before she decided she was going to homeschool her kids. So we never went to school.
Okay.
But what she saw during that time was that the kids that were getting pulled out to be homeschooled, those odd characters, were usually happening because they were getting so much bullying. They were getting picked on so bad. So the oddballs that are now being claimed to be homeschoolers were actually still, I don't want to label anyone an oddball, but they were still an oddball within school. And the reason they were homeschooling was because they were getting picked on so much, where the parents had to take them out. So
which was even worse for whatever struggle it is that they had. Yeah.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And then when it comes, what was the second thing you just said there? It slipped my mind, but it was, let's see, God will give it to me in a second.
Trying to think what I said.
Oh, you gave us a lot of deets there.
Resources, statistics. Mm-hmm.
Oh, so the statistics, good job. You got it. So there was a kid we grew up with, and my mom, because she transitioned into online teaching, she was always able to sign off on people's work. So there was this kid who I grew up with, and when I tell you, he was the smartest kid I have ever met in my life. Graduated like 4 years early, went on to go to college, graduate college pretty much when he should be in high school. His parents, they worked basic jobs. They were not anything, they were not geniuses. They had no idea. My mom is any math problem put in front of her, she can handle it. She was signing off on his work, and she would have to study beforehand to go look at his work to make sure that she could actually look at and go through it. But their parents, like I said, they were just basic education, no idea what the kid's learning, but because they were resourceful, they were finding people in the community, finding resources at the library, finding videos online that the kid could then go into and still receive this insane education, even though everything that he was doing was a different language to them. They had no idea.
Sure. They farmed it out. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So just
but they took the responsibility to do it, and it sounds like they did it well. Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So the last thing I would like you to do, just because you're an expert in the field, you've been doing it for so long, you've probably worked with, I can't imagine how many different homeschooling families. Any words of encouragement to those new homeschooling parents that, hey, Maybe because you aren't the one that you didn't go to college to become a teacher. Maybe you're just a normal, like my dad, a construction worker, that you do have the skills and you do have the resources available to you that you can go forth and put your kid with the life skills they need to succeed later on.
Hmm. I like that. Well, first, I'm going to correct you on one thing. I would not call myself a homeschooling expert. And there's only one reason why. I am an experienced one, but the word expert implies that there's kind of like one way to do something. And
Love
actually, the
that.
very key to home education is that there's not just one way to do it. So if anyone tells you they're an expert in home education, it means they have no idea what home education is about because every family can tailor the education to meet the needs of their kid. So you can't be an expert if every family is going to look different. So anyway, that's just one of my pet peeves.
Love that though.
There should be no experts, right? Because but where we each excel is in knowing the kids that God gave us. So I guess if I had one piece of encouragement to share with new parents, and I even told people who like just have babies this too, because my kids are now in the childbearing years. And when they have their babies, I say to them, keep in mind, you have carried this baby for 9 months in your womb. Now that it's born, you are spending every moment with this child. So, as much as well meaning grandmas and aunts and cousins may come around and say you ought to do this or you ought to do that, you do know your baby best. Now,
Wow.
new mamas are not experts in maybe some nursing techniques or in this formula if they need to choose one and that. And certainly they've got a resource. But I'm just saying, who knows your kids best? The parents do. And that goes miles. It goes miles because there's this feeling like I love other people's children. I love children, but my own children have a very special ranking. It is like that's the kind like I'll lay on the railroad tracks and die for you kind of love. Like what I would literally have given my life for my own children. And I'm not sure I can say that about some of my other relationships in my life. Not that I wouldn't care, but there is something so unique and so God given. This mama bear that comes out of us. It is God given. And what's so beautiful is that God feels that way about us. We are his children. So he knows this feeling. He inspired us to feel the same toward our own kids, be it that we birthed them or adopted them. You know, it works both ways. But run with that when it comes to choosing to keep your children around you more hours at home than if you sent them away. It doesn't mean you might not farm them out here and there. There's some challenges we face, but trust that this love you have comes from God. It is specifically for the children God gave you, and it will endure. It will last. My kids are grown adults now, and I'm still feeling this. I tell my kids every now and then because I know they don't quite understand, but we're empty nesters, and they're still like once in a great while when they come home all at the same time. I will still notice if I'm in a room and all three of my children are in the same room with me, I stop and I pause because I miss them. And when now that they have kids and spouses, I don't get them alone very often. But if I happen to find myself in a room, and let's for bonus say it's just me, my husband, and those three grown kids, and if I look around and I just see them standing there, it's like, see, I'm crying even now.
I'm crying with you.
It's like, it's us. It's us. It's this original family that I still love in a way that is a mystery. I can't explain that love I have for them, but it is still there. It will last till the day I die. And literally, I hope to be on my deathbed one day. And who do I want there? I want those three kids to be the nearest to me and husband if I'm the one going first. You know, God only knows. Anyway, so run with that. Don't question that love and don't let the naysayers, you know, derail you. You can do this. There are resources to help, and it's come so far, and at least it's a bit more mainstream than it used to be. So
Yes.
sorry, I didn't mean to just
No,
fall into tears, but
oh,
I
I
hope
love
that
that.
is comes across as authentic as it feels in this little heart of mine.
It
I'm a
does.
sap. That's why I write world histories. I feel it.
No, that was actually beautiful. Thank you so much. And I know my mom, I can feel that same love from her. And even just when I go visit them at the house, I can see how much she enjoys it. If it's just me sitting on the rocker next to her talking, I can
Because she
feel
sees you as a 4-year-old. I
she still does.
guarantee it.
Sometimes she still thinks I'm a 4-year-old and still tries to tell me what to do. But like I said, no, I can feel it, and I'm sure every other mother out there feels it as well. So thank you so much. And again, I'm trying to be respectful with the time. So thank you for your time today. And if you could give our parents just maybe some links or is it your website? Where would you like to guide them?
Absolutely. If they go to themysteryofhistory.com and don't miss it's
Okay.
themysteryofhistory.com. My website is loaded with resources, our curriculum, there's videos, all kinds of helps. I also have a podcast they can follow. I have newsletters. I have blogs. So, I'm still cranking out stuff. And as a final prayer request, I am writing American history now. And it won't be ready for a few years, but there will be another Mystery of History product to come down the pipe that will be the Mystery of American History. So pray for me because it's going to be a doozy. Got a few years ahead of me still.
I love it. I'll make sure, because we always write a resource for every single one. I'll make sure we include all of those links and everything in there for you. Thank you again for your time today. And thank you.
Yes,
I know you got a lot going on. Thank you for making time.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. God bless you guys. Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.